Jackie Chan once famously declared, "I will not leave a penny to my son. If he is capable, he can make his own money." But when that same son was imprisoned for drug offenses, Jackie didn't just welcome him back, he handed him the keys to the empire. In contrast, his biological daughter Edamung has never committed a crime. Her only sins were being born from an affair and loving another woman. The result? She waits in line for food banks in Canada while her father walks the red carpet in Hollywood. Why is the hero who saves the world on screen the villain in his daughter's eyes? The most dangerous stunt Jackie Chan ever performed was not sliding down a skyscraper or jumping from a helicopter. It was convincing the world that the character he plays on screen is the man he is in real life. We have been sold a carefully curated product, a symbol of discipline and traditional values. But illusions shatter when faced with reality. While Jackie Chan's wealth is estimated at nearly $500 million, enough to support generations, his biological daughter has resorted to sleeping under bridges and queuing for food banks. This grotesque disparity requires no investigation to understand. It is a brutal demonstration of how absolute fame can calcify the human conscience, stripping away the good guy mask to reveal the toxic, unyielding pride that lies beneath. And this pride is fortified by the numbers. In 2018 alone, the very year his daughter Etta appeared in a viral YouTube video begging for help, Forbes reported that Jackie earned nearly $50 million. While he was flying in a custom-designed Embraer Legacy 650 jet adorned with his dragon logo, his daughter was sitting on the floor of a cheap room in Toronto, wearing a heavy puffer jacket, indoors because she couldn't afford heating. She told the world she was homeless. She looked into the camera with hollow eyes and asked for help. The world waited for the good guy to step in. Instead, they got silence. A cold, calculated, stony silence. In the court of Jackie Chan, Etta Ung had committed the ultimate crime. She had embarrassed him. And for that, the punishment was total abandonment. He is merely applying the brutal logic of the environment that raised him. Hong Kong in the 1980s and 90s was not just a city. It was a fever dream of capitalism. It was the Hollywood of the East, a place where movies were churned out at breakneck speed, where triads laundered money through film productions, and where stars were forged in fire. And sitting atop this chaotic pyramid was Jackie Chan. By the late 80s, Jackie had transcended the role of actor. After the death of Bruce Lee, Hong Kong was desperate for a new savior, and Jackie filled that void with a manic energy that was impossible to ignore. He created a new genre, the kung fu comedy. He broke his nose, his jaw, his fingers, his ribs, and his skull. He performed stunts that insurance companies refused to cover. This physical sacrifice created a bond with the audience that bordered on religious devotion. They didn't just like him, they worshipped him. In this ecosystem, Jackie Chan became Daigo, Big Brother. The title implies absolute authority. In Chinese culture, the Big Brother is the provider, the protector, but also the dictator. His word is law. On set, if Jackie said jump, you didn't ask how high. You jumped until you broke your leg, and then you thanked him for the opportunity. He surrounded himself with the Jackie Chan stunt team. This was not a union. It was a brotherhood, almost a cult. Members wore his uniforms, ate his food, drove cars he bought them, and lived by his code. In his autobiography, Never Grow Up, Jackie admits to the hedonism of this era. He describes entering high-end watch shops and buying the top 7 watches in the display case simply because he could. He describes driving drunk, crashing Porsches in the morning, and buying new ones in the afternoon. He carried plastic bags filled with millions in cash. He was a man who had never been told no for 20 years. He lived in a bubble of absolute affirmation. If he wanted a woman, he had her. If he wanted a script changed, it was changed. If he beat up a photographer, the triads or the police would make the problem disappear. This impunity bred a dangerous psychological condition, a God complex. Jackie began to believe that the rules of morality and consequence applied to ordinary people, not to the dragon. He believed he could control reality itself. This desire for total control extended into his personal life, specifically his marriage. The story of Jackie Chan's marriage to Joan Lin is the first major red flag in his psychological profile, a precursor to how he would later treat Etta. Joan Lin was not a nobody. In the 1970s, she was one of the biggest stars in Taiwan, a Golden Horse Award-winning actress equal in fame to Jackie. But when she became pregnant with their son JC in 1982, Jackie's reaction was not joy but paranoia. At the time, the idol culture in Asia was toxic. A Japanese fan had notoriously committed suicide upon hearing a rumor that Jackie was dating. Another had attempted to drink poison outside his office. Jackie was terrified that if his marriage was revealed, his female fan base would abandon him and his box office numbers would plummet. So he devised a cruel solution. He married Joan Lin in a secret, hasty ceremony in a Los Angeles coffee shop cubicle. There were no guests, no wedding dress, no celebration, just a contract. Immediately after, he effectively banished her. Joan Lin was sent to live in a massive house in California, while Jackie returned to Hong Kong to live as a bachelor. For nearly 2 decades, Joan Lin was a geographic widow. She raised JC alone in the United States. Jackie would visit for a few weeks a year, play the father, and then vanish back to his life of parties, stunts, and women in Hong Kong. He hid her existence from the public with an obsessive zeal. JC was instructed not to talk about his father in public. They were a secret family, kept in a gilded cage. Why did Joan accept this? It was the era, the culture, and the power dynamic. She had given up her career for him. She was financially dependent on him. And Jackie, in his own words, was deeply suspicious of women. He believed women were gold diggers who were only after his money. He admits to keeping his finances hidden from Joan for years, giving her just enough for household expenses, but never allowing her access to his main accounts. He was testing her loyalty, treating his wife like an employee who might steal from the register. This background is crucial. It shows that long before Etta Ng was born, Jackie Chan had already established a pattern of compartmentalizing his family. He viewed family members as assets to be managed or liabilities to be hidden. He had successfully erased his wife and son from the public eye for 15 years. He had proven to himself that he could keep a secret. He had proven that he could live a double life without consequence. So in 1999, when he met a young, vibrant beauty queen named Elaine Ng, he didn't see a risk. He saw just another conquest. He saw another secret he could keep. He was the dragon after all. He could do whatever he wanted. The year was 1998. Hong Kong was transitioning from British rule to Chinese rule, a time of uncertainty and excitement. Jackie Chan was 44 years old. He was at the absolute peak of his powers. Rush Hour was about to conquer America, making him a true global superstar. At a party in this glittering metropolis, he met Elaine Yile. Elaine was 26 years old, nearly 2 decades his junior. She was the winner of the Miss Asia 1990 pageant. She was known in the industry for being somewhat rebellious, spirited, and undeniably beautiful. Unlike the patient, silent Joan Lin waiting in California, Elaine was present. She was part of the Hong Kong scene. She was fun. The affair began as many industry flings do: discreet dinners, late-night drives, whispered rumors. For Jackie, this was standard operating procedure. He had allegedly had numerous affairs before, but they had always remained whispers. The women knew the code: have fun with Big Brother, but never demand anything, and never, ever go public. But Elaine was different, and biology is the one thing fame cannot bribe. By late 1998, the rumors were reaching a fever pitch. The Hong Kong paparazzi, the most aggressive in the world, smelled blood. They began trailing Elaine. They noticed the loose clothing. They noticed the visits to doctors. When Elaine revealed to Jackie that she was pregnant, the reaction was not the warm embrace of a lover. It was the cold calculation of a CEO facing a hostile takeover. According to various reports and later hints dropped by Elaine, the expectation from Jackie's camp was clear: get rid of it, abort the child, take a payout, go abroad for a few months. Do not threaten the empire. Do not threaten the marriage that protected half his assets. This is the moment where the good guy mask slips completely. A man who builds his image on protecting the innocent was reportedly pressuring a woman to terminate a pregnancy simply because it was inconvenient for his career. But Elaine Cheung refused. Whether out of love for the unborn child, religious belief, or a stubborn desire not to be bullied, she decided to keep the baby. She decided to go to war with the dragon. As the year 1999 approached, the tension in Hong Kong's entertainment circles was palpable. Everyone knew a bomb was about to go off. Jackie Chan, the man who could jump off buildings and survive, was about to face a fall that no stunt wire could save him from. He was about to be exposed as a fraud. And in his panic, in his rage at losing control, he began to formulate a strategy. If he couldn't stop the child from being born, he would ensure that the child paid the price for its existence. He would punish the mother by punishing the daughter. He prepared to commit a moral crime that would stain his soul forever. The storm broke in November 1999. After months of feverish speculation, whispers in the VIP rooms of nightclubs, and blind items in the tabloids, the truth arrived with the wail of a newborn. Elaine Cheung gave birth to a baby girl, Etta Ng Chok Lam. The tabloids in Hong Kong went nuclear. There was no denying the paternity. The child's eyes, even in infancy, bore the unmistakable heavy-lidded mark of the Chan lineage. She was a biological carbon copy of the superstar. The little dragon girl had arrived, and with her arrival, the fortress of silence Jackie Chan had built around his private life crumbled into dust. He could no longer hide behind his stunt team or his lawyers. He could no longer rely on the yes men to make the problem disappear. He had to face the cameras. What followed was perhaps the most infamous press conference in the history of Asian entertainment, a moment that would define his character far more accurately than any script he had ever acted in. The setting was chaotic. Flashbulbs popped like stroboscopic gunfire. Microphones were shoved forward like spears. Jackie sat there, looking not like a man tormented by a moral crisis, but like a man inconvenienced by a logistical error. He wore a casual shirt, his expression a mix of annoyance and arrogance. He did not apologize to the child. He did not promise to support her. Instead, with a calmness that bordered on sociopathic, he delivered the line that would haunt his obituary. He looked into the lens and famously declared, "I have made a mistake that every man in the world makes." With these 13 words, Jackie Chan did not just deflect blame, he normalized betrayal. He framed his infidelity not as a personal failure of discipline or loyalty, but as a biological inevitability. He implicitly insulted every faithful husband on the planet to excuse his own lack of control. It was a masterclass in gaslighting, suggesting that male promiscuity is a force of nature, like the tide or the wind, and therefore he could not be held fully responsible for the wreckage it caused. But the true horror of that statement lay in its subtext. regarding the child. By labeling the affair a mistake, he extended that label to the product of the affair. Etta was not a daughter in his eyes. She was the residual damage of a momentary lapse in judgment. She was an error code in the operating system of his life. In the immediate aftermath of the confession, the stakes for Jackie were not emotional. They were financial. He was facing a potential divorce from Joan Lynn, the keeper of his legitimate heir, JC. Under Californian law where Joan resided, she would likely be entitled to half of his massive fortune if she filed for divorce. The dragon was terrified. He was terrified of losing the empire he had broken every bone in his body to build. According to his own memoirs, he called Joan expecting her to scream, expecting her to curse him. He was ready to fight. Instead, Joan Lynn played the ultimate hand of the matriarch. She did not scream. She told him calmly, "You don't need to explain. I don't want you to hurt her, and I don't want you to hurt us. If you need me and our son to stand up for you, we will be there, but you must handle this." It was a chilling exchange of power. Joan Lynn offered him total forgiveness and the retention of his fortune, but the unspoken condition was clear. You must choose. You can have the family in America or the family in Hong Kong. You cannot have both. To save the marriage, and more importantly, to save the assets attached to the marriage, Jackie had to prove his loyalty. And the price of that loyalty was the total sacrifice of the illegitimate child. Reports from the time indicate that Jackie effectively struck a deal with his conscience. He would cut all ties with Elaine and the baby. No money, no contact, no acknowledgement. In exchange, he would be allowed to return to the family fold. It was a transaction. He bought his redemption with his daughter's abandonment. While he publicly apologized to Joan and JC, begging for their forgiveness and praising Joan's magnanimity, he offered nothing to the newborn girl but a lifetime of emptiness. He did not sign the birth certificate. In the official records of Hong Kong, under the section for father, there is a blank space. It was a bureaucratic erasure, a legal declaration that as far as Jackie Chan was concerned, Etta Ng did not exist. The financial cruelty was immediate and absolute. Jackie Chan was already a multimillionaire, earning tens of millions of dollars per film. A monthly child support payment would have cost him less than what he spent on a single dinner for his entourage. It would have been a rounding error in his accounting books. Yet, he refused. Elaine Ng was left to raise the child entirely on her own. While Jackie's son JC was attending elite schools in California, driving luxury cars, and living in a mansion with servants, Etta was being raised in a single-parent household in Hong Kong, fueled by bitterness and public scrutiny. The media narrative was carefully controlled by Jackie's powerful machinery. Elaine was painted as a schemer, a gold digger, who had tried to trap the superstar, the honey trap. Jackie was the victim. The child was simply collateral damage, ignored and discarded to protect the dragon's gold. Growing up as the bastard child of the most famous man in Asia is a specific kind of psychological hell. Etta Ng didn't grow up in poverty, at least not initially. She grew up in a glass house, constantly watched by the paparazzi yet invisible to her father. She was the most famous secret in Hong Kong. Every time she stepped out of her apartment, photographers were there, looking for a glimpse of Jackie in her face. But inside the apartment, the atmosphere was suffocating. Elaine Ng, the mother, had lost her career as an actress and beauty queen. Her reputation was shattered. She was known only as the mistress, a pariah in high society. And slowly, tragically, she began to project that bitterness onto the only person she could control, Etta. The reports that emerge from Etta's childhood paint a disturbing picture of domestic dysfunction. While Jackie was filming blockbusters like The Myth and the Karate Kid, traveling the world, and teaching Jaden Smith how to be a disciplined, respectful young man, his own daughter was allegedly being subjected to draconian punishments at home. Etta would later speak of a childhood defined by fear and instability. She spoke of being forced to stand facing a wall for hours on end for minor infractions. She spoke of physical discipline that crossed the line into abuse. She became a vessel for her mother's regrets. The isolation was total. Elaine, perhaps out of paranoia or perhaps out of shame, reportedly isolated Etta from her peers. Etta had few friends. She was the freak at school, the girl whose dad was a superhero but who didn't want her. Imagine the psychological dissonance of living in Hong Kong during the 2000s. As Jackie Chan's unacknowledged daughter, you could not escape him. His face was on the side of buses. His face was on billboards, selling insurance, selling shampoo, selling charity. He was on the news shaking hands with presidents. He was singing at the Olympics. He was the mascot of the city. Every time Etta turned on the television, there was her father, smiling that infectious, warm smile that the world loved. She saw him hugging pandas. She saw him donating millions to earthquake victims. She saw him crying on talk shows about how much he loved children and how important family values were. She watched the world worship the man who wouldn't even pick up the phone to call her. This was not just absence, it was a ubiquitous, mocking presence. He was the world's dad, but he refused to be hers. This creates a wound that time does not heal. It festers. It teaches a child that they are fundamentally unlovable, that they are a shameful secret. By 2015, the cracks in the glass house were impossible to hide. The pressure cooker of resentment finally exploded. At 15 years old, Etta did something desperate. She called the police on her own mother. She reported domestic abuse and accused Elaine of alcoholism. It was a cry for help that rang out across Hong Kong. The police arrested Elaine, and Etta was briefly hospitalized. The news cycle went into overdrive. The little dragon girl was self-harming. She was cutting her arms. She was suicidal. It was a tragedy playing out in real time, the inevitable result of 15 years of neglect. The media besieged Jackie Chan. At the time, he was on a promotional tour for his latest blockbuster, Dragon Blade. He was surrounded by microphones in a luxury hotel ballroom. The reporters didn't ask about the stunts. They asked about his daughter. They asked if he knew she was in the hospital. They asked if he would visit her. They asked if he would pay for her therapy. His response was a masterclass in indifference. He offered no comment. He did not rush to Hong Kong. He did not send a lawyer or a social worker. He simply continued his tour. He maintained the wall of silence he had built 15 years prior. To acknowledge her pain would be to acknowledge her existence, and that was a line he refused to cross. He treated the suicide attempts of his daughter with the same detachment he would treat a bad review of his movie. In a rare and heartbreaking interview that year, a teenage Etta told the press, "He is my biological father, but he is not in my life. He never existed in my life. I will never regard him as a father. As long as I have my mother, I don't need my father." It was a brave face. It was the defiance of a child trying to convince herself that she didn't need the one thing every child needs. But beneath the defiance, the damage was catastrophic. Etta was adrift. She was caught between a mother who resented her existence and a father who denied it. And as she entered her late teens, she was grappling with another truth that would soon make her an outcast, not just to her father, but to her traditional mother as well. She was realizing that she was gay. In the conservative world of the Chan family dynasty, this would be the final nail in the coffin of any potential reconciliation. The mistake was about to become a rebel. And the punishment for rebellion in Jackie Chan's world is total excommunication. This period from 2000 to 2015 was the incubation of the tragedy. It was the era where Jackie Chan proved that his cruelty was not a one-time event in 1999, but a sustained daily choice. Every morning for 5,475 days, he woke up, looked at his bank balance, looked at his empire, and chose to keep his daughter locked outside the gates. He chose his pride over her safety. And soon, the world would see exactly what that choice cost her. To fully grasp the grotesque nature of this abandonment, we must look away from the daughter in the shadows and turn our gaze toward the son in the spotlight. This story is not just about a father leaving a child. It is about a father choosing which child is worth saving. It is a tale of two heirs, separated not just by geography, but by the impenetrable wall of patriarchal tradition. Born in 1982, J.C. Chan was the crown prince to Jackie's king. While Etta was hidden away like a dirty secret in a cramped Hong Kong apartment, J.C. was raised in the sprawling mansions of Los Angeles. He was given every conceivable advantage a human being can possess. He attended elite schools. He was given music lessons, acting coaches, and unrestricted access to luxury cars. When he decided to enter the entertainment industry, the doors didn't just open, they were taken off their hinges. Jackie financed his movies. Jackie leveraged his immense connections to get him record deals. JC was the vessel for the Chan legacy, the designated carrier of the bloodline, and the recipient of unconditional paternal investment. But in August 2014, the crown prince fell, and he fell hard. J.C. Chan was arrested in Beijing during a high-profile police raid. Authorities found more than 100 grams of marijuana in his apartment. In the Western world, this might be a minor scandal, a tabloid blip. But in the People's Republic of China, where drug laws are draconian and the government wages a fierce people's war on drugs, this was a catastrophe. It was a capital crime in the court of public opinion. The irony was Shakespearean. At the time of the arrest, Jackie Chan was not just a movie star. He was an official anti-drug ambassador for the Chinese government. He had filmed commercials telling young people to stay away from narcotics. He was the face of discipline and national pride. And now his own son, the Prince of the Empire, was sitting in a detention center, facing criminal charges for sheltering drug users. It was the ultimate loss of face. It was a humiliation that reverberated from Beijing to Hollywood. If Jackie Chan were truly the man of principle he claims to be, the strict disciplinarian who believes in consequences above all else, this should have been the end of JC. By his own logic, the mistake of the son should have been treated with the same cold detachment as the mistake of the daughter. If anything, JC's mistake was worse. It was a criminal act committed by an adult, whereas Etta's only mistake was being born. But watch what happened next. Jackie did perform the requisite public theater. He appeared on television looking somber and bowed in apology. He wrote on his microblog, "I am very angry and very shocked. As a public figure, I am ashamed. As a father, I am heartbroken. I failed to teach my son, and I must take responsibility." It was a perfect performance of the grieving, disappointed father. But behind the curtain, the machinery of the Chan Empire went into overdrive. Jackie did not abandon his son. He did not cut him off. He did not pretend he didn't exist. Instead, he deployed his immense resources to soften the blow. When JC was sentenced to 6 months in prison, Jackie was waiting. And when JC was released in February 2015, the redemption arc began immediately. In a highly publicized ritual of repentance, Jackie was seen shaving JC's head. It was a symbolic gesture of starting over, of shedding the past. It was an act of intimacy, forgiveness, and paternal solidarity. Jackie then began to reintegrate his son into the business. He backed JC's albums. He eventually cast him in his film Railroad Tigers. He ensured that the prince's fall was merely a stumble, not a fatality. Now, hold that image in your mind. Jackie Chan, the billionaire, gently shaving the head of his 32-year-old son, who had just been released from prison for a drug crime. He is tender. He is present. He is a father. Now cut to Etta Cheung. During this exact same period, 2014 and 2015, Etta was not committing crimes. She was not hosting drug parties. She was a teenager suffering from severe depression and alleged abuse. She was cutting her wrists. She was crying out for help. Where was the tenderness for her? Where was the symbolic haircut? Where was the army of lawyers and PR specialists rushing to save her future? There was nothing. While the drug-using son was welcomed back into the fold with open arms and a rehabilitated career, the innocent daughter was left to rot in the toxicity of her environment. It is a stark, brutal demonstration of traditional values twisted into cruelty. The son is the bloodline, no matter what he does. He carries the name. He carries the incense for the ancestors. The daughter, especially an illegitimate, non-conforming daughter, is disposable. She is a liability. This double standard destroys the argument that Jackie is simply a strict man. He is not strict. He is selective. He forgave the son who humiliated him with a criminal record, but he punished the daughter who humiliated him by being born. If the years in Hong Kong were a slow suffocation, 2018 was the year Etta Cheung finally broke the glass and screamed. Etta had met Andy Autumn, a Canadian social media influencer 12 years her senior. For the first time in her life, Etta found someone who validated her existence, someone who offered an escape from the stifling control of her mother and the ghost of her father. They fell in love. And in a move that was both an act of liberation and desperation, Etta fled Hong Kong. She ran away to Canada, the land of her father's occasional residence, perhaps hoping for a fresh start in a country known for its tolerance. But reality is not a movie. There was no safety net. There was no trust fund waiting for her. The couple quickly burned through their meager savings. They found themselves in Toronto, one of the most expensive cities in North America, with no jobs, no connections, and nowhere to go. In April 2018, the world saw a side of the Chan legacy that had been meticulously hidden for nearly 2 decades. Etta and Andy uploaded a video to YouTube. It was not a polished vlog, it was a distress signal. The video opens with Etta and Andy sitting in a dimly lit room. Etta looks gaunt, her face pale, her eyes darting nervously. She's wearing a heavy black puffer jacket indoors, a subtle sign of their precarious living situation. She looks directly into the lens, and for the first time, she uses her father's name as a weapon of truth. "Hi, I'm Jackie Chan's daughter, and this is my girlfriend Andy," she says. Her voice is shaky but clear. "We've been homeless for a month due to homophobic parents. We've pretty much slept under a bridge and other things. The admission hit the internet like a bomb." Jackie Chan's daughter and sleeping under a bridge are words that simply do not belong in the same sentence. Etta continued, detailing a harrowing month of survival. She spoke of going to the police, going to the hospital, going to LGBTQ plus food banks and shelters, only to be told that they would be split up if they accepted government assistance. "No one wants to help us," she said, her voice cracking. "We don't know what to do at this point." The visuals were jarring. Here was the child of a man worth $400 million, a man who owns private jets and multiple mansions, looking like a refugee in a first world country. She described sleeping under a bridge, a literal troll under the bridge of her father's success. She spoke of the fear of being separated from the only person she loved. The video was a plea for help, but it was also an indictment. By publicly stating my parents are homophobic, she stripped away the excuse of the affair and aimed the spotlight directly at the bigotry she felt she was facing. The public reaction was a chaotic mix of shock, pity, and cynicism. The internet divided into two camps. One camp was horrified. They saw a young girl clearly traumatized, abandoned by a billionaire father. They calculated the math. The interest on Jackie Chan's bank account for a single day could rent them an apartment for a year. The cruelty seemed absolute, but the other camp, fueled by the narrative Jackie's team had long cultivated, was skeptical. They attacked Etta. They attacked Andy. They asked, "Why don't you get a job?" They called them lazy millennials. They accused Andy of grooming the younger Etta and using her for fame. They echoed the sentiment that Etta was trying to blackmail her famous father. And what was Jackie Chan's reaction to these global headlines? Silence, or rather a silence that spoke volumes. Through his representatives and through the quiet channels of the Hong Kong press, the narrative was spun. The video was framed not as a cry for help, but as a threat. In the eyes of Jackie Chan and the traditionalists who support him, Etta had committed the ultimate sin. She had aired the family's dirty laundry. She had caused him to lose face on a global scale. To a man like Jackie, who values reputation above all else, this video confirmed his worst biases. In his mind, she was not a daughter in need. She was a problem to be managed. If he gave her money now, he would be negotiating with terrorists. If he saved her from the bridge, he would be admitting guilt. So he did the most ruthless thing imaginable. He stood his ground. He let the news cycle churn. He let the tabloids mock her. He let his daughter stay under the bridge. While Etta was reading comments telling her to get a job and shivering in the Canadian spring, Jackie was promoting his new line of environmentally friendly cinemas in China. He was smiling. He was cutting ribbons. He was the hero. The dissonance is suffocating. A man who builds cinemas to save the environment would not build a home to save his child. The bridge in Toronto became a monument to his ego. It was the line he drew in the sand. You are not my child. You are a stranger who wants my money, and I will starve you out before I give you a cent. If the YouTube video in 2018 was a scream for help, the years that followed were a long, agonizing silence. The viral storm passed, as internet storms always do. The headlines faded, the hashtags stopped trending, and the world moved on to the next celebrity scandal. But for Etta Ng, the reality of poverty did not disappear just because the camera stopped rolling. The bridge was not a metaphor. It was a prelude to a half-decade of grinding survival. Late 2018 saw Etta and Andy marry in Canada. They posted a photograph on Instagram, holding their marriage certificate with a caption that read, "Love is stronger than blood." It was a defiant victory lap, a proclamation that they had chosen each other over the families that had rejected them. For a brief moment, it seemed like a happy ending, a modern fairy tale of resistance. But marriage does not pay the rent. Victory laps do not buy groceries. The years from 2019 to 2024 were a slow, brutal descent into the reality of the working poor. The couple struggled to find stability in Toronto, a city facing its own housing crisis. Etta, having dropped out of school and lacking any formal qualifications or family support, found herself in the same position as millions of others, working minimum wage jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, always one missed shift away from disaster. But unlike millions of others, her father was one of the richest men on earth. The psychological toll of this disparity cannot be overstated. Imagine scrubbing dishes in a restaurant kitchen for $11 an hour, knowing that your biological father earns that amount every fraction of a second. Imagine counting coins for a subway fare while seeing your father's face on a magazine cover in the kiosk, boasting about his collection of rare sports cars. In October 2022, the paparazzi caught up with Etta again, but this time, it wasn't a posed video or a defiant social media post. It was a candid shot taken by a bystander in Toronto. The image showed Etta standing in line at a food bank waiting for free supplies. She was dressed in oversized, worn-out clothes, a blue tote bag slung over her shoulder, her hair unkempt. She looked exhausted. She looked like a ghost of the girl she used to be. The photo went viral on Weibo and Twitter, sparking a fresh wave of debate. The contrast was visceral. In that same week, Jackie Chan was reportedly earning millions for his appearance on a Chinese variety show. He was living in a world of private jets, banquet halls, and adoration. His daughter was standing in line for canned beans. The internet reignited the moral argument. How could he? How could a man who claims to be a philanthropist, a man who has donated millions to disaster relief, who has built schools in rural China, look at that photo and feel nothing? Is there a disconnect in his brain that categorizes Etta as not human? Or is his resentment so deep, so calcified, that seeing her suffer brings him a perverse sense of justice? The silence from the Chan camp suggested the latter. It was a demonstration of the waiting game. Jackie Chan was proving that he could outlast her. He was proving that his silence was louder than her poverty. He was proving that without his blessing, she was nothing. By 2023, the strain of poverty began to crack the only foundation Etta had left, her marriage. Reports surfaced that Andy Autumn had left the relationship. The love stronger than blood had succumbed to the crushing weight of reality. Etta was now truly alone. No mother, no father, no wife. In early 2024, investigative reports suggested Etta was utilizing the shelter system in Toronto, a place of last resort. She had spent over 400 days in and out of temporary housing. She was working menial jobs, barely scraping by. She had become a statistic. The cruelty here is not active. Jackie did not push her into the shelter. It is passive cruelty. It is the cruelty of indifference. He simply refused to pull her out. He watched her drown from the deck of his yacht. As his wealth ballooned, reaching an estimated 1.95 billion Singapore dollars by some valuations in 2025, Etta's poverty deepened. It was a sustained, years-long demonstration of power. We are now in the present day, late 2025. The dragon is aging. Jackie Chan is 71 years old. The frenetic energy that defined his youth has faded. His hair is graying, his movements are slower, and the mortality of the legend is becoming undeniable. The stunts have stopped, the body is tired. And as with all great kings in their twilight, the question of legacy and inheritance has begun to loom large. For years, Jackie famously declared he would leave his entire fortune to charity. In 2011, he told the press, "If my son is capable, he can make his own money. If he is not, then he will just be wasting my money." It was a noble sentiment, perfectly aligned with his image as a self-made man who pulled himself up from poverty. But as the end approaches, the resolve seems to be crumbling. Recent insiders from the Hong Kong entertainment industry suggest a shift. Rumors are swirling that Jackie is modifying his last will and testament. The All for Charity pledge is reportedly being softened. Provisions are being made for Joan Lin, his loyal wife who stood by him through every scandal and managed his empire in the shadows. Provisions are being made for JC, the son he rehabilitated, the bloodline is being secured. The empire is being consolidated. And Etta, she remains a ghost in the machine of her father's empire. Sightings of her are rare now. Sometimes she is spotted in Toronto waiting in line for food. Sometimes rumors swirl of her return to Hong Kong. But her stance has remained heartbreakingly consistent throughout the years. In past interviews, when asked about the inheritance she was denied, her response stripped Jackie Chan of all his power. She didn't ask for the fortune. She didn't ask for the mansions. She simply stated that he was a stranger to her. With those few words, she destroyed the narrative that she was a gold digger and delivered the final verdict. It reveals the core tragedy that Jackie has spent 25 years trying to bury. Money was never the point. The bridge was never about rent. It was about recognition. It was about the primal need of a child to be seen by the man who made her. By rejecting the fortune he wielded as a weapon, she disarmed him. Jackie Chan has spent his life building a legacy as the big brother of Hong Kong, the protector of the weak, the defender of justice. But as he prepares to leave this world, the one person he failed to protect is the one who shares his DNA. He has conquered Hollywood. He has conquered the box office. He has conquered the hearts of millions. But he failed the most basic test of manhood. He wants us to remember the stunts. He wants us to remember the broken bones and the blooper reels. He wants us to remember the smiling hero who gives a thumbs up to the camera. But history sees the truth. The camera of reality does not blink. When the lights go out and the applause fades, the image that remains is not the hero flying through the air. It is the image of a billionaire turning his back on a hungry girl. It is the image of a father who chose his pride over his child's life. Jackie Chan proved that you can be a hero to the world and a villain to your own blood. He proved that a man can have everything, fame, fortune, adoration, and still be spiritually bankrupt. His movies may be comedies, but his life is a tragedy. And the ending is not a blooper reel. It is a young woman standing alone in the rain, while the credits roll on a father who never was. We live in an era that is obsessed with deconstruction. We tear down statues. We re-examine history. We demand accountability from our leaders and our icons. Yet for decades, Jackie Chan has remained Teflon. He has been insulated by a force field of nostalgia. We grew up with him. He was the VHS tape in the VCR on a Friday night. He was the smiling face on the poster. He was the comforting proof that good guys always win. To criticize him feels like criticizing our own childhoods. It feels like a betrayal of the joy he gave us. But maturity requires us to separate the art from the artist. It requires us to look at the world not through the lens of a movie camera, but through the lens of truth. And the truth of Jackie Chan is a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. It is the story of a man who gained the whole world but lost his own soul. It is a cautionary tale about the corrosive nature of absolute fame and the toxic rigidity of traditional pride. Throughout this documentary, we have asked why. Why would a man worth nearly $500 million refuse to spare a fraction of his wealth to keep his daughter off the street? We have looked at the cultural excuses, the concept of face, the pressure of the Asian patriarch, the bitterness of a scandalous affair. But ultimately, these are just masks. They are convenient shields used to hide a much simpler, much uglier truth: cowardice. Jackie Chan is a man who has jumped from helicopters. He has slid down the side of the Willemswerf building in Rotterdam. He has broken his skull, his ankles, his fingers, and his ribs. He has faced death 100 times for the sake of a perfect take. He's physically fearless, but emotionally, he's a coward. He is terrified of the one thing he cannot control, the consequences of his own actions. He is terrified of looking into the eyes of a daughter who represents his moral failure. He chose the easy path. It is easy to be a hero when the script is written for you. It is easy to save the girl when the stunt team has rigged the wires. It is easy to be a philanthropist when you are signing checks in front of a cheering crowd. But it is hard to be a father. It is hard to sit in a quiet room with a child you have wronged and say, "I am sorry." It is hard to admit that the mistake was not the child, but the abandonment of the child. Jackie Chan, the bravest man in cinema, ran away from the hardest fight of his life. The tragedy extends beyond Etta. It infects his entire legacy. When he passes, and he will pass, for even dragons are mortal, what will the obituaries say? They will list the box office records. They will list the honorary Oscar. They will list the broken bones. But in the digital age, where nothing is forgotten, there will be an asterisk. There will be a footnote that screams louder than the main text. Future generations will not just watch Police Story. They will watch Etta's YouTube plea. They will see the photos of her in the breadline, and they will wonder how a man could be so great, yet so small. He has spent the last 10 years of his life trying to rewrite the ending. He talks of charity, he talks of peace, he talks of one world, one love. But charity begins at home. You cannot hug a panda to make up for starving your daughter. You cannot build a school in a distant province to atone for the fact that your own child slept under a bridge. These acts of public benevolence, when viewed alongside his private cruelty, look less like generosity and more like a desperate attempt to buy a stairway to heaven. They look like the frantic calculations of a man who knows he has sinned but refuses to confess. Etta Ung is now an adult. She has survived. She is building a life, however humble, on her own terms. She has rejected the money that was never offered. She has rejected the name that was never given. In doing so, she has shown a strength that her father never possessed. She has faced the world without a mask. She has lived her truth, regardless of the cost. In a supreme irony, the daughter he calls a mistake possesses the very resilience and honor that his movie characters only pretend to have. She is the real survivor. As the screen fades to black, we are left with the silence of the phone that never rang, the silence of the father who never came, and the silence of a legacy that is slowly turning to ash. We love our heroes. We want them to be perfect. But Jackie Chan is not a hero. He is just an actor who played one. And when the credits roll, the lights come up, and the audience goes home, he is left alone with his reflection. And one has to wonder, when Jackie Chan looks in the mirror, does he see the dragon? Or does he see the man who left his little girl in the cold? That is a question only he can answer. And it is a question that will follow him to the grave.